Hi, this is Sean McCracken, your OC Realtor, bringing you the California dream of eco, sun, and fun. I'm here in North Laguna with David Parker here, who's a 15-year architect here in town. And we're starting a new series where we're starting to look at different architecture in town, everything from cottages to adobe to ultra-modern and everything in between.
It's better to experience architecture than it is to just talk about it, so we're going to go into this house in a minute, aren't we?
Okay, yep. We're going to look at this house right here. Now this house is for sale. It was built in 1937. It's a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, about 924 square feet on a pretty good sized lot, about a 4,500 square foot lot. Has a lot of the original architecture, and that's really the reason we're looking at this today, is that, and again, this is going for $925,000. So let's take a look here, and why don't you describe a little bit about the architecture right now? What did the type of people that came here in 1937, and you know, again, some of the features that you see in this house that were pretty prevalent in the cottages at that time.
Yeah, there's some things that are fairly typical and some other things that are a little bit unique. And it's a 1-story cottage and it's very small, which was common back then. This one is a little bit different because it has both stucco and board siding. Usually it's one or the other. And there's some trim that is a little bit more than you typically see on some of these cottages. But it's very low profile and it's got a lot of charm to it. Who knows what the original color was, but I think the green is a nice choice.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very serene color. Mm-hmm. In addition to the stucco, they've added an accent with brick. You can see under the bay window, and the grout was allowed to.
Yeah, weren't a lot of people that came into, you know, that owned these cottages? Weren't they from like Pasadena, and they just came down during the summers?
I think you're right. I think a lot of people did that. They might have even been from out of state and had a summer cottage here. Back then, it was a lot easier to afford a summer cottage, I think,
right,
than it is today.
One of the other things that, you know, I've been working with some of these other architects here, and one of the things that we're saying that makes Laguna so unique is how eclectic it is. And unlike many other cities that require you to have a certain setback, you know, of 20-some feet or whatever, a lot of these houses were built before those types of rules came into play. And therefore you see, if you look up and down the street, you know, some are set way back, some are close to the street, and so forth. And again, that adds a lot of the unique flavor of Laguna Beach.
What I do these days is what most people consider modern architecture. And I like to compare modern architecture with traditional architecture, and whether it's a cottage or something else. And what does modern architecture do that traditional architecture doesn't do? What does traditional architecture do that modern architecture doesn't do? One of the things that always comes to mind that it's really hard to achieve in modern architecture is something called charm. And these little cottages really have a lot of charm. And that's one of the things that is unique about them, I think, and what makes them so special. And it's hard to say what do you do to achieve that charm, but you know it when you see it. One of the things I like about these older homes is the ceilings are open and the beams are open in the ceiling. And the reason for that is because when this house was built a long time ago, there was no requirements for energy conservation, and energy was cheap, no one was worried about it. And in California, you don't worry about extreme temperatures, so they build a ceiling without insulation and all the beams could be exposed, and they've got these ties here. It adds a lot of character to the home. And you don't really see the wood board construction, which adds a really lovely texture to these vertical lines. You don't see that sort of thing anymore. So it's very charming and it's very nostalgic, and that's one of the unique characters of these older homes. A lot of people ask what can they do when they buy a house like this to improve it, make it more livable without really destroying the character of everything. And a couple things came to mind when I first looked at this. I think this could be lowered and made into an eating bar, and I think that it could be lower, but I think we'd also like to close this opening down a little bit because you really don't want, you want to hide your kitchen a little bit. This opening here also could be enlarged so that the space is shared from the living room to the dining room. I would like to rearrange the kitchen a little bit, but I wouldn't really want to create a a really slick modern kitchen here. I think that really doesn't belong. I think if you have a house like this, it's like having a classic car. You don't want to upgrade everything on the car. Like the normal kitchens today, the drawers and doors are very high tech, and this is about as low tech as you can get. That's part of the charm of it. So I think I would probably find a different place for the stove, because you can almost see it when you walk in through the door, and I would probably replace the counters with tile. This looks like Formica. I'm sure it wasn't built with Formica. It probably was originally built with tile. So it would be nice to try to find an example of a kitchen counter tile that was used at the time and try to replicate it. But if this were lower, if it came out here a little bit, the stove were maybe shoved over, maybe another counter on the other side of the stove, everything remaining original, or the appearance of being original, I think that would really improve the kitchen quite a bit and still retain the original character.
A lot of these older places have a lot of detail. That's really cool. So like, look at this storage area here. It has this vent that's out, and then they always had little secret spots.
Yeah, little hidden places. Look at this. I just noticed this. It slides open, so that you can use little spaces that you normally can't get to.
Right.
It seemed like they knew just how much detail to have without going overboard.
Right. And then they have a lot of these little shelves, you know, all throughout these old cottages here. Why don't we go back into the back bedroom?
It's fairly large for a house from this era too. It's a modern sized secondary bedroom almost.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so it looks out on a nice big lawn, as well as it has a little ocean view there as well. And then the closets, many of these places are not the biggest, but this one's a pretty good size. And then they share, the two bedrooms share a bath. Wait till you see this. Go ahead.
Yeah, as I said before, this little vanity is really, really nice, and I've never seen something like this before in an older cottage. But they took the trouble to make a little entrance into the bathroom into a little dressing area, a little vanity area. And it looks original. It's hard to tell sometimes, but I don't know, they just got a certain look about it.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's not original, it's certainly built around that era.
Mm-hmm. And then it has the tub that's probably original, kind of iron cast.
Yeah.
As well as the sink.
The sink, I'm sure is original.
And they just have a couple lines in it that distinguishes it from today's era.
It's just everything you need, but nothing more.
There you go. Most of the cottages in North Laguna have alleyways in the back and garage in the back, but this does not, for one reason or another. It has a little wash in the back, so therefore you get a good size lawn. And let's look back at the house here. First of all, we'll look down, and this is all your property line, or the property line of the house. Okay, there's a little easement down there in the middle where the alleyway was supposed to be. And then got a stucco backyard. And what would you do for privacy here on this back porch area? Because you do have some houses fairly close by.
Some planting close to this deck, just high enough for privacy, something dense,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe even better yet, an arbor or something temporary, because any landscaping you do or anything like an arbor that's a structure, a permanent structure, has to be approved, which I'm sure it would get approved, but in Laguna it's kind of a long, expensive process. So if you had something temporary, either some plants in pots that are close together, or even maybe a canvas shade or something like that, or a wood lattice that's
Mm-hmm.
not attached to the ground, you just pick it up and move it.
Mm-hmm.
That would be a really simple, easy,
Mm-hmm.
inexpensive way for privacy.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's great. I really appreciate it, David.
Thank you.
You know, if you want to get a hold of you, where can they get a hold of you?
Well, I have a website. It's www.dmparchitect.com. Also, if you go to lagunalist.com, I'm on there as well.
Okay.
And they can also
Phone
contact
number?
you.
Yeah. That's right, Sean McCracken, your OC Realtor, 949-290-5317, or Sean at Welcome to the Dream, or welcometodream.com, or on this YouTube, go to subscribe, that little yellow button down there, and you'll get all my videos. Thanks so much.